Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you again for joining us this evening. My name is Sophia DiPietro, and I serve as the Operations and Engagement Coordinator with QEW. And today I'm joined by Gayle Matson, one of our wonderful steering committee members, our treasurer, and a formal investment manager and philanthropy planner. And we're so excited to share with you tonight a little bit about planned giving generally, and then how planned giving can support our work here at QEW. And there's many different things that go into planned giving. So we're going to touch on a bunch of different things today. We will be moving through multiple areas of planned giving pretty quickly. We're going to ask that you save your questions until the end of our time together. And again, as I mentioned, we're going to have a couple of different resources to share with you all afterwards, including this presentation. So you'll absolutely be able to refer back to it just in case there's anything that we missed or that you want to go over again. And then, of course, myself and Gayle are always resources to you as well. And so I just want to start by saying, first of all, thank you so much to all of our supporters and volunteers at QEW. We would not be able to carry out the work that we're currently doing and the work that we hope to do without your support, both in terms of monetary support, but also in terms of your knowledge, your time, and your volunteering with QEW. We have an incredible base of supporters here, and Gayle and I were just talking a little bit about how amazed we are, honestly, by all of the people that serve within QEW in so many different ways. It is just incredible the way that people contribute their time, their energy, and their passion to the work that we're doing. Every day, I feel at times overwhelmed just with the state of the world, but so grounded knowing that there are so many people in our community that are so steadfastly committed to Earth Care and the work that we're carrying out here. And that we know that the work that we're doing day in and day out is supporting not only us now, but future generations to come. And that's where plan giving comes in, because your ability to think forward allows QEW and other organizations like QEW to carry out the work and plan ahead for future projects, campaigns, and resources for other generations to come. So thank you again, friends. And again, this presentation is really being offered as an informative invitation to learn more about plan giving and to just have a conversation about the options that are available to you as a supporter and to people that you might know who would be interested in not just QEW, but any charitable organization that is carrying out similar work, because it expands across many different interests, and the options are at times seem a little endless. So I'm really excited to share this all with you today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gayle to get us started.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. And I think I know just about everybody who's up here, whose names are up here on the screen, and you're the tried and true loyal group here, and I really appreciate that. When I checked in with Keith about this event the other day, he was a little apologetic that we didn't have a bigger group, and I told him that first of all, I wasn't surprised because I've done this presentation for other organizations, and so far I haven't had people lined up at the door to hear about planned giving, but maybe, I mean, that's a possibility. So, and secondly, this is something a little bit new for QEW. I wanted to do this topic ever since I became treasurer at Quaker Earthcare Witness. And maybe the news will spread, the word will spread that planned giving isn't just for people with a lot of resources, that actually it's a vehicle for people of more moderate means to be able to make a larger gift and impact in the future. So just to echo what Sophia was implying, this isn't any kind of a sales pitch. It's not. It's just an invitation to reflect together on stewardship and legacy and to be helpful. That's really the underlying goal of the presentation. So I would love to be able to make a $50,000 gift to QEW today, but unfortunately, like most people my age, I have no idea what kind of resources I'm going to need as I approach the end of my life. And, you know, life expectancy is on the rise again in the United States. And many of us have seen our parents need assisted living or memory care at an exorbitant cost. The average cost of memory care in California this year is about $132,000 a year. That's a pretty stiff price tag if we're looking at 4 or 5 years needing that kind of care, as some people do. So those kinds of expenses can just be such a wild card that when we try to estimate whether we have enough money to see us through our retirement years, it's just a little bit of a crapshoot, to be honest. So the best I can do is to give generously as I feel comfortable doing now, and I hope there's something left for my beneficiaries, including QEW at the end. The other general comment that I would make is that if there's one thing I learned working as a financial planner and investment advisor for 25 years, it's that people have extremely diverse and very complicated relationships with money. And as a lifelong Quaker, I had a lot of Quakers in my practice. And it's one of the things that I'm running up against as we're doing this fundraiser in Portland is as I think about who has money, a lot of them were my former clients, which makes it awkward then to go and do a donor call. But at any rate, some of the friends who had the most complicated relationships with money were Quakers, actually. So I mention that just because I want to name the fact that this is not an easy topic for a lot of people, and but for obvious reasons, it's a lot easier for people to imagine giving away their money when they're gone than it is to give money away while they're still alive. So, and finally, this is a really huge topic with a lot of detail, some of which is almost guaranteed to make your eyes glaze over. So this is really an introduction to the topic. And as QEW's treasurer, I am happy to talk with you privately at greater length about some of the options that might suit your particular needs, or drill down to some more advanced planning strategies at no obligation to you, as long as some part of your charitable intention includes, at least in some way includes QEW. So I'll just make that offer. Or to refer you to Mimi Blackwell, who's the plan giving specialist at Friends Fiduciary, who's very lovely person and very competent. So, okay, so the basic outline for this presentation. We'll start with the what is it, what is plan giving, and then talk briefly about the why. And then we'll move on to some of the various plan giving strategies and options and tools. We'll we've planned for an hour and a half, but I'm hoping that we'll leave at least 30 minutes for questions. So I'm going to move along pretty steadily. And if you could hold questions until the end, I think we might actually get through this material. So, okay, so next slide.
And I
Oh,
realized I
forgot this
had this
part.
in between the two
Yeah.
slides, but if you feel called to, we would love to hear what called you to attend this webinar today. And then if you don't feel like sharing, that's also totally fine. But we would love for you to put your name, your meeting affiliation, where you're joining us from, and your role within QEW, if that's applicable, in the chat, just so we can all see where we're coming in from.
And if you're really here just to support your treasurer, it's okay to say that too.
Yes, yeah, we always appreciate the calls for support.
Okay, so next slide. So what is plan giving? It's the best description of it is that it's a gift that you make arrangements for now that will benefit the organization at a later time, often through your estate plan, which is kind of a polite way of saying upon your death. Unlike the gifts that many of you generously make each year out of your current income or retirement plan distributions, plan gifts usually come from your accumulated assets, from the sale of your property or valuables, or from your retirement accounts or savings and investments at the end of your life. And because of that, plan giving allows many people to make a far larger impact at the end of their life than they ever thought possible during their lifetime, without affecting their day-to-day finances or their quality of life now. So what about the what of plan, or the why of plan giving? And go ahead with the next slide. Well, that last statement, making a larger impact in the future than you can comfortably make today, anticipates the question of why do this kind of planning. besides the obvious fact that we can't take it with us, I think you would agree that charitable intentions are a reflection on our testimonies as friends, and we don't have to go over all of these. We all know what they are, but it's one of the things that I have always really appreciated about friends is the fact that friends tend to understand that our resources are being entrusted to our care and stewardship, and ultimately, planned giving allows us to align those our financial decisions with our values. So that's one of the very good reasons. Um, go ahead with the next slide. There are some really powerful tax advantages, and we'll talk about those, both in terms of immediate charitable deductions, avoiding capital gains, and reducing estate tax. And so I'll point those out to you. We've talked about ability to give without affecting finances and the letting your life speak. And some plan giving options actually provide lifetime income to the donor or to the donor's chosen beneficiary. So go ahead with the next slide. But maybe, at least from my perspective, where I'm sitting as treasurer, one of the reasons to do planned giving is that it really provides long-term financial stability for our work. It allows us to fund projects that might have multi-generational time horizons, and we have that Quaker commitment to thinking 7 generations ahead, and it allows us to do that. In fact, as the youngest of the go ahead, you can go to the next slide. As the youngest of the Quaker alphabet organizations, or one of the youngest of the Quaker alphabet organizations, we're kind of a little late to the plan giving party. We've had some bequests, and that's been great, but nothing in the kind of 6, 7, or larger figure windfalls that other organizations like AFSC have had. Your eyes are not deceiving you. When we look at AFSC's fiscal year 2024 part of their financials, that is $188 million in invested assets. I can guarantee you that that didn't come from monthly contributions. It came from huge gifts and bequests. And I say this I'm not suggesting that FSC is hoarding assets or something. Those are probably gifts that they can't spend the principal for. And if you go to the next slide, Sophia, these are all the named endowments at AFSC, and I would guess a lot of them came with restrictions that only the income on the corpus of the gift was to be used in a given year, or some restrictions about the maximum amount that was to be given, or they were given for a restricted purpose. So there are so many endowments that we couldn't even make them kind of big enough for you to actually see the names on there. And again, this isn't to say that you shouldn't make a gift to AFSC, but I mean, let's be real. A $5,000 gift to QEW is going to have a lot more impact than it's going to have to AFSC. And if that is indeed one of your values, and it doesn't have to be, as a philanthropy planner, one of the things I used to do is work with people to figure out what kind of impact do you want to have? Do you want to help a small organization get over the hump? Do you want to be the last dollars for a project that is almost there? I mean, how do you want to, do you want to fund a capital, a building with your name on it? What is it that really is important to you? And that's a very personal thing. I don't pass judgment on how people want to leave their legacy. So anyhow, we're going to talk about these types of planned gifts. There are other vehicles and other strategies, and if there's something that you were hoping to hear about that we're not going to cover, we can talk about that in the time that we have left. I think we're going to have quite a bit of time left. I'm talking as fast as I can without losing people. We'll move through. I'm not going to talk about each of these now. I'm just going to move through each of them and use some examples and so forth. So let's go ahead and move on. So this is by far the most common type of legacy gift, to just make a gift through your will or living trust. And it can be one of several kinds. It can be a percentage of the total estate, a specific amount, $10,000. It can be part of what's left after you make other gifts. It can be, or it can be a percentage of what's left. So there's obviously a lot of flexibility, and we have sample language for all of these various flavors of bequests. As you can see, it's only a couple of sentences, and it doesn't have to. You don't have to redo your whole will. You can add this as a codicil. It's very very easy to do. And there is one other kind of gift that I want to say something about, and that is another kind of bequest, which is that some people like to make a gift and specify how the funds are going to be spent. That's a restricted gift. And that's fine. We will always honor your preferences if you do that. But we do ask that you include some additional language, and all of this is actually in a handout that we have. We're going to make the PowerPoint and several handouts available to you after the webinar. So you don't need to worry about taking notes or anything like that. It's all there. Excuse me. But the language is like this, and the issue is that sometimes many years can elapse between the time that you make your will and when a will goes to probate, and the needs of the organization may have significantly changed over time. So if you have preferences, like I said, they'd be honored unless it becomes very difficult or counterproductive to do so. And that's why we like language that says something like this. And again, this is going to be in the handout. So if in the judgment of the Quaker Earthcare Witness Steering Committee, it should be or ever become possible or impractical to use the bequest in accordance with my preference, the steering committee shall be free to make whatever use of my bequest it deems appropriate. So I'm thinking of, if somebody wanted to leave $30,000 to fund the publication of Befriending Creation for X number of more years. Well, that might be great, but it might be that isn't what we need. And it just isn't practical, or we're not even publishing Befriending Creation at all anymore, or something like that. So just know that we would always honor your preference, but be careful about what those preferences are. So let's move on to, thank you. This is my very favorite. I don't know why more people don't do this. It's so easy to do. It doesn't cost anything. It can be changed anytime. Takes 5 minutes, and it's one of the most tax advantageous things that you can do in terms of planning vehicles. So and this applies to, I'm really thinking mostly in terms of a retirement account, but even a bank or brokerage account, it's easy to do this with. Most people don't know that many banks and financial institutions, if not most banks, will allow you to have what's called a POD account, a payable on death account, which means that you have the account, and maybe you have a spouse and it's a joint account. But if you're a single person, for example, and you want to name beneficiaries to a bank account or to a brokerage account that isn't an IRA, you can do that. You can set up a special titled account that has your name and then says POD after it, payable on death after it. So that's another flexible way to be able to change the beneficiary of who's going to actually get that money, and it passes outside your will. It's called a will substitute. But especially with retirement accounts, if if you're not leaving the retirement account to your spouse, or your spouse has already passed away, and say you have kids and they're doing all right, or even if you have kids and you want to leave 10% of the retirement account to a charitable organization, you just list them as a beneficiary on the beneficiary designation. You just ask wherever you keep your retirement account, you ask for a change of beneficiary form. It's very easy. You fill it out and you add the charitable intention to that, even 10%, 20%, 5%, whatever it is. And that will supersede anything else that's in your will. A lot of people don't know that either, that you might have a will that says, I leave everything I own in this world and all my money and assets to my nephew. But if you have listed somebody else as a beneficiary on any of your retirement accounts, or you have a POD, that trumps anything that's in your will. And this passes outside of probate and soon after death, so usually you don't have to wait for an estate to close to get the money. Okay, so let's move on. Charitable gift annuities. This is essentially an insurance contract where you irrevocably transfer cash or assets. It can be highly appreciated assets, stock that, if you were lucky enough to buy Apple stock at some point and you're still holding on to it, and the cost basis is tiny, and now you don't want to sell it because the capital gains is so high, this is an option. You can put this into a charitable gift annuity. You get the full value without ever having to pay the capital gains on the stock, and in exchange you get fixed lifetime payments based on rates from the American Council on Gift Annuities for the rest of your life. And not only do you cut out the capital gains tax, but you get an immediate charitable deduction that's calculated based on a number of things. It's a little complicated, but your life expectancy and then whatever remains in the pot of money that you're being paid from goes to the charity upon your passing. It'd probably be managed by Friends Fiduciary or Everence. They manage most of the Quaker charitable gift annuities. Go ahead and go on to the next. So this is what it looks like. You can see number one, the donor makes a gift of assets. If it's stock or property, the assets are sold once they're put in the annuity, and that's irrevocable. You don't get that money back. And then in exchange, you have an immediate income tax deduction and fixed payments for the rest of your life, and the remainder goes to charity. Now, if you get hit by a bus a month after you have made this deal, taken out this contract, sorry, too bad, so sad. You only got one payment, and that was it. That's just the way it works. So the annuity people are kind of betting that you're going to live a certain amount of time, and that's how they calculate what they can afford to pay you. And if you plan to live to be 100, you've gotten a pretty good deal out of the whole thing. But if you do plan to live 100, you might want to name another charitable beneficiary other than QEW, because we could be on the hook for paying you after the pot of money runs out. That's one of the downsides of a charitable gift annuity, is that people are living a long time. And it doesn't always work out to the benefit of the organization. So here's how it works. I'm going to use my own age, 72. And if you look at the chart, the rate is 6.6, and that is 6.6% of whatever I gift is what I get for the rest of my life. So if I were to transfer $100,000 of highly appreciated mutual funds and had a capital gains of $50,000 on it, I wouldn't have to pay any capital gains, which would have been about, the federal capital gains would have been about $7,500, but then I would have had state tax as well. And then I received the immediate tax deduction of approximately $40,000. Why $40,000 and not 100? Well, it's because the annuity folks, well, Uncle Sam, actually, the IRS, calculates how long they think I'm going to live and estimates what the portion is that's going to be left behind upon my passing. And that's $40,000. So If I can't take that deduction all in one year, I probably wouldn't be able to even deduct it because it's not enough. It isn't enough money to kind of exceed the standard deduction for married filing jointly. But if it were more than that, I could spread it out over several years if I wanted to, and then I would receive $6,600 a year for the rest of my life. And whatever is left after all is said and done would go to QEW. Okay, so charitable remainder trusts. Similar to a charitable gift annuity, you can transfer all kinds of assets into it. That's one of the reasons people do it, is because they end up with something that is really valuable that they're just going to take an enormous tax hit by selling. And that tax hit isn't just federal tax. By the time you have $100,000 or $200,000 worth of capital gain on a valuable piece of property, for example, that hits your tax return and puts you into a much higher bracket. There are all kinds of additional taxes at that level, and state taxes. And not only that, the price of your Medicare Part B doubles. So there are all kinds of reasons why people don't want to take the tax hit and find a creative way to deal with that. So you can transfer all kinds of assets into a charitable remainder trust. Like a charitable gift annuity, the transfer is irrevocable. Once you do it, that's it. It's a done deal. But unlike a charitable gift annuity, the named charity can be changed. It's not super easy to do, but you can definitely do it. And you have a lot more flexibility. You can choose the amount of income you want to take annually, from as little as 5% to as much as 50%. And it may sound like, well, 50%, that's only 2 years, but it's 50% then of whatever the corpus is in the second year, and then the next year, and so forth. And then you decide how many years you want to receive the income, either for a lifetime or for a fixed amount, like 10 years, or up to 20 years. So, but the structure and the administration of these charitable remainder trusts is really quite complex. So go ahead with the next slide. There are two kinds of charitable remainder trusts. There's a charitable remainder annuity trust, which is more like a charitable gift annuity, except that you can kind of set the terms. You decide what the fixed amount is. Instead of that $6,600 a year, I could decide I was going to take $15,000 a year. And the only stipulation, and the reason why I like these way better than a charitable gift annuity that can actually run out of money, is that the trust has to end when it only has 10% of the initial fair market value of the trust, left in it. So at that point, the trust terminates. So we're guaranteed of having some residual amount in the trust, and maybe more than that. The charitable go back one. The charitable remainder unit trust is essentially the same vehicle, but it has different bells and whistles. It's a fixed percentage of the balance of the trust assets. And you can make additional contributions to it over time. And you determine the percentage, which can be anywhere, like I said, from 5 to 50%. So go ahead, Sophia. So this is what it looks like. You make a contribution to the charitable remainder trust, and in exchange, you get a partial tax deduction, just like with the same kind of thing with the charitable gift annuity. The IRS figures out, based on the percentages that you've set, what's going to be left in this thing, given your life expectancy and so forth. And then you get an income stream to either yourself, or you can name another income beneficiary of a charitable remainder trust, or multiple beneficiaries. And then whatever's left at the end, a minimum of 10, but hopefully more, you can divide between one or more charities. Okay, go ahead. So I mentioned this not because it's necessarily a traditional planned gift, but it's so often overlooked, and that is most of us have at least some kind of appreciated mutual fund or stock outside of our IRA. Many of us do anyway. And it's a really good way to cut. I kind of like cutting Uncle Sam out of the mix for these things. And not that I object to paying taxes generally. I object to paying federal taxes because of the way they're. I don't like paying for war. I don't like paying for ICE. I don't like paying for ballrooms. I don't mind paying my state and local taxes or my property taxes. I think we get a pretty good deal on those fees, but I like to cut Uncle Sam out of the deal, and this is one way to do that. I think people are intimidated by the idea of doing it. It really isn't hard. If you want some hand holding through it, I'm happy to do that. You can call Sophia for assistance. I'm planning on doing it just so that Sophia can have a run through. It might not be a huge amount of money, but just to kind of test the waters. We have an account at Schwab, and since we have some money at Friends Fiduciary, we're also able to use them to sell the stock and give us the money. The whole point is you avoid paying capital gains on the sale of the investment, and you're able to get the tax advantage of the full amount. I was going to say, by the way, that that $188 million in invested assets at AFSC probably yields about $10 million of income per year that funds all kinds of programs. And I just yesterday got the statement from Friends Fiduciary that we had received our semi-annual dividend check for the $5,000 that we squirreled away at Friends Fiduciary a couple of years ago, and it was $97. That's 97 with no zeros after it. And it did make me kind of smile that we're doing this webinar today, and that's where we're starting. So that's all I have to say about gifts of appreciated assets. Is just, if you have them, do it. We'll help you. Okay, donor advised funds. This is these have become really popular, and I don't see any faces. People are probably cooking dinner and doing stuff like that, so I can't have people nod their head or whatever. But these have become very, very popular, and I was going to ask if anybody actually has one. I don't have one. Oh, there's Tom. Tom, do you have a donor advised fund by chance? Nope. Okay. Well, they became really popular at some point. I think in part because it happened as a result of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, which raised the standard deduction so high that now 90% of people who make charitable contributions get no tax benefit from it. The standard deduction for a single person is like 24,700 for a senior, and 40 something for a married couple. I can't remember off the top of my head, and it tends to change. So you have to, the only way, you're probably taking the standard deduction unless you have some really pretty unusual tax situation. And so this is one of the ways to actually, possibly be able to get some benefit from making charitable gifts. If you were to, for example, have a year where you had you incurred capital gains because maybe you sold your primary home that you'd been in for 40 years, and as you know, you get you get the first. If you're single, the first 250,000 exempted, and if you're married, the first 500,000 exempted in capital gains. But real estate has appreciated so much that it's likely that you could end up with a couple $100,000 worth of capital gains pretty easily when you sell your home and make a move to maybe a retirement community or something like that. So this is when a making a gift, creating a donor advised fund could really be advantageous. If you know that you're going to give a total of $5,000 a year, let's say, or $10,000 a year to the various organizations that you like to support, your Quaker meeting, other Quaker alphabet organizations, QEW, etc. Front loading that by putting some larger amount of money into a donor advised fund would be one way to do that. And you can put property in a donor advised fund, and then it's sold. It's kind of on paper in the fund, then it's sold, and you don't pay capital gains on it that way. So you avoid capital gains. Or you sell it, you have the cash, you know you have a capital gains obligation that you're going to have to make good on to Uncle Sam. So you take some portion of that, let's say $70,000, and you put it in a donor advised fund, and you're able to take an immediate charitable contribution that exceeds your standard deduction. So you're actually able to get the benefit of that deduction and other itemized deductions. So you have to think of it as kind of a there you go. Think of it as a charitable giving investment account, because you put the assets into it. The assets can be sold, and then you invest the proceeds. Usually you don't have a lot of control over the investments, but you tell the financial institution, well, I want something that's a moderate portfolio, or 60% stocks, 40%, that kind of thing. And then they choose the investments, which is one of the reasons why it's nice to be able to have it someplace like, don't actually know for sure that Friends Fiduciary does donor advised funds, but if you're interested in, you can say it's got to be socially and environmentally screened. So you set up the account, put the assets into it. Maybe they're sold. If it isn't cash, then they're invested, and from then on, it's kind of like an investment account. You decide every year who you want to gift money to. And you just go online, you direct the financial institution that you want $1,000 sent to this this charitable organization, or that one, or QEW, and they follow your instructions. There are some different institutions can make their own rules about how whether you can skip a year, or whether you have to distribute something every year, a minimal amount every year. They're all a little bit different. Fidelity does it one way. Charles Schwab does it another way. I think Green Century does donor advised funds as well. So you become the one who drives the train in terms of who gets the money, but you have irrevocably put money into the account, and the financial institution manages it. So the reason why this is more than just current giving is because you can also name charities to receive what's left of the fund upon, whatever is in the donor advised fund upon your death. What a lot of people do is name a successor. They're called advisors, donor advised funds, so they call the donor an advisor. It's just finance speak, I guess. And a lot of people like to name a family member as a successor advisor so that they can continue the legacy of philanthropy within the family. The minimum amount that most places require to open a donor advised fund is $10,000. Once it's opened, you can add to it. And again, the most powerful way to use this is to add what are highly appreciated assets that you already have. So you cut out the capital gains, you get an immediate charitable contribution deduction, and you remove it from your estate so that you aren't, if you're in in a state where there's an estate tax, you don't end up paying estate tax on that amount, which, by the way, is one of the advantages of all of these planned giving vehicles. They all take the money out of your estate, except for a bequest. And in the case of a bequest, it's the amount that you leave to an organization is still considered part of your estate because you haven't given up control of the money. But when when the estate makes the charitable contribution, distributes the money to the charity, you're able to count that as a charitable deduction on your estate tax return. Some of you who have handled your parents' estates probably know that you still have to do a final return, that even after somebody dies, their assets can make money, and that Uncle Sam still wants his part of whatever income you've received. So go ahead to the next slide. So here's a graphic about how it works, but it's pretty much as I've just described it. You make a contribution. The assets are invested. Often they're sold and then they're invested. You can recommend grants, and they say recommend grants because they can reject the organization that you recommend if for some reason they think it isn't a viable organization. I've never personally seen that happen, but I guess they don't use the language direct the grants, but recommend the grants. And then the legacy part is naming family members as successor advisors. Remember, I said that was what they call the donor, and continue supporting charitable causes. Okay, so that was a whirlwind, but as I said, the whole idea was to give you kind of a flavor of the range of the different kinds of gifts. And there will be kind of a little description of each of these in the material that we have available for you as a handout to send out after. And so how do you actually begin all of this? Well, you reflect on your values and intentions. This isn't all about QEW. This is broader than that. I mean, you probably have other causes and ministries that are near and dear to your heart. But in the long run, as it says at the bottom, planned giving is really, it's about discernment. It's about thinking about what kind of a legacy you want to leave and to what kind of organization. So you reflect on your values and intentions and do that discernment, and you can consult with your financial advisor if you have one, or attorney if you have one. You can speak to us confidentially, of course. You can let us connect you with Friends Fiduciary for more complicated plans. I mean, if you have land or, assets that are not very liquid or something like that, that you're trying to figure out what to do with, this Friends Fiduciary would be the place to go for that. You can set up a turnkey charitable remainder trust or donor advised fund at most major brokerages, so you can go directly to them, and they'll be happy to hear from you. These brokerages all have a separate nonprofit foundation set up so that they can receive these assets. That's the only way that they can receive them. So all of them have set up these separate foundations. So those are some of the ways that you can start. I want to, though, kind of reiterate that that planned giving isn't really just about what you give. It really can genuinely help you and your family as well. It can help remove some of the really ugly taxable situations in that you're holding on to in your estate. I don't think I mentioned, or maybe I did. I ran through this so quickly that that the beneficiary designation is what I have chosen to do. Did I say that already? No, I don't think I did. And when I did it, it was kind of I thought, well, I'm going to do this. I had another organization as well in the mix, um, and then the more I've been thinking about it, I've been thinking about my two adult children who, fortunately, knock on wood, have both landed in um, very high earning kinds of jobs. They make more than I ever dreamt of making in my lifetime, and so I have had them as the beneficiaries of my IRA. But I'm starting to think, in reality, they don't really need the money. So I want to have a conversation with them about amping up the percentage for QEW, and so I'll see how that goes. And as a former client of mine used to say, money isn't everything, but it does keep the kids in touch. so, um, so I don't, I think, I mean, it's ultimately, obviously, it's my decision, but as a courtesy, I want to let them know so they aren't terribly surprised. Um, anyway, and the thing about the IRA is that they will have to take distributions from it, and at their like I said, they both make a lot of money. And at their level of income, when they take a distribution from my IRA, Uncle Sam is going to take a huge bite out of it because it hits their tax return as ordinary income. Income that they don't really need right now and that is just going to be taxed to high heaven. So, plan giving is really not just about the organization, it's about ways that it can help you. That's one of the reasons people do it. Um, and again, many of these kinds of gifts make a significant impact to an organization like QEW. In fact, I would go so far as to say, I don't want to sound like gloom and doom, but I think if we aren't able to build up a little bit of, if not an endowment, at least a little bit of windfall that is, if not six figures, at least five, somewhere along the line, in the way of a bequest or some kind of planned gift, it's going to be hard for us to keep kind of limping along. Um, so, uh, I think it's really an important topic and one that I would like to see us um, promote a little bit within the organization. And then, of course, obviously beyond the practical, there's just the deep satisfaction of knowing that 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 you're leaving a legacy that reflects your values, and what you leave behind will continue the work that you cared about during your lifetime. So, is there another slide, or are we at the end and ready to? Okay.
Yeah.
Gee, I think the timing was just, I said I wanted to leave 40 minutes to have questions and talk, and I think we've got that. And I don't know if people are even on the line. People are probably cooking dinner and doing some other things. But if you want to join the conversation, we'll be just delighted to take some questions, comments, feedback about doing this again, because we will do it again. I'd like for us to be able to do it maybe even at least every year, but a couple of times a year. And so feedback about what would be could be more helpful to people, what you wish we had covered this time around, you wish I hadn't talked so fast, whatever it is. I'm open. I don't blink with, in fact, I welcome that kind of feedback. So anybody, unmute yourself and speak out. Elaine, you're muted.
Right. Can you take the slide down so we can see everybody?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, good
absolutely.
idea.
That's,
Great. Perfect.
yeah, much better. Yeah, I really like this because Phil and I are redoing our wills finally
Uh-huh.
after moving from Utah to
Mm-hmm.
back to Indiana, and lots of the laws have changed. You might be
Yeah.
surprised. I brought in a very complicated will that we had to have, and now wills are much simpler, so that part is good.
Mm-hmm.
but we got a lot of the similar advice where I gave her a list of the organizations like Q and the people, but also she said, be sure to put it in your IRA
Hmm.
and bank account and all of those things. And I think that's a really good reminder. I mean, even though I know some of this and I've heard it
Hmm.
from the woman who's doing our will, this stuff is really helpful. So I like the idea of doing this, um, and maybe having mini workshops at our fall meeting too,
Hmm.
so people
Okay.
can learn about it. Because if you're young enough, you don't think about dying.
Yeah.
And you actually don't realize how much money you're accumulating. A lot of us did nonprofit work, or Phil and as a professor, we didn't have big salaries, but we were able to save a lot, so it accumulates. So you can make a real impact, and especially for Q. And of course, Q is near and dear to me. So thank
Hmm.
you. It
Yeah.
was really helpful, and I still need to hear it again.
Well, thanks. That's great to hear, Elaine. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
And we did talk about the possibility of offering these annually and then also offering these as like interactive workshops where we could do a little bit more hands-on. You have your documentation in front of you and we're answering specific questions or walking you through certain steps as well. So definitely something that we're thinking about, and if there's a need, would be happy to provide.
Yep.
I have just a quick question, Gail, and that is,
Okay.
you kept mentioning Friends Fiduciary.
Right.
And my understanding is they only work with organizations, but do they work with individuals too? I mean, is there access for individuals to
Yeah.
work with
Yeah,
with?
they didn't used to. They don't, you can't keep your money, you can't keep your IRA or your brokerage account there. But for charitable vehicles, they do work with individuals. They realized that they were starting to lose, I guess, market share, if you will, to Everence, who does all kinds of that sort of thing. And Everence is very good too. I didn't talk about them much, but I'm a little more familiar with Friends Fiduciary. But Everence does the same kind of work, and a lot of people in the Midwest tend to use Everence. Everence is also has a real specialty around farmland and very creative ways to avoid taxation and do charitable planning with land. So not just conservators, not just land conservation, but other ways to deal with highly appreciated land. So they do charitable gift annuities, charitable remainder trusts, and that would be the place that we would send somebody. It used to be that AFSC was the one who kind of held the charitable gift annuities, but Friends Fiduciary does it now. They don't have a lot of them. They've got about 65 charitable gift annuities that they've paid out over, because they've only been doing this for about 5 years. But they brought Mimi Blackwell on to develop the planned giving services for Friends Fiduciary. And I'm a little. I know that Friends Fiduciary. There are a lot of Philadelphia yearly meeting, Baltimore yearly meeting. Both had kind of a we're both very angry with Friends Fiduciary at some point when they wanted Friends Fiduciary to divest from fossil fuels in their portfolios. And Friends Fiduciary didn't do that. Their answer was to create a green fund and still keep the dirty funds. And that really angered a lot of people, including me. I couldn't figure out, really? That's the way you're going to deal with it. But I do understand that it's very difficult for a fund to divest. But, where there's a will, there's a way. So anyway, they finally did completely divest from fossil fuels. And so I definitely want to give Friends Fiduciary the right to change. And so I think there are still some yearly meetings that are holding that against them, but I think that's kind of ill-placed sentiment myself.
Yeah. And hopefully in the future, we'll be partnering with Friends Fiduciary to really take a stand as Quakers and put our money where our mouth is and make sure that our investments align with our values. So hoping to call them into partnership on these things as well.
That's right. They are talking about, I hope they do it, developing an impact fund that is not focused on the stock market, but is focused on alternative projects and community development. And that would be a really progressive thing for them to do. Financial institutions, even Quaker, even a Quaker financial institution, are just some of the slowest to move and change of any organizations out there. So it takes a lot, but it's one of the things that we're going to be, QEW is actually talking about working directly with them to try to influence them to take this on.
And I see we have a hand raised. You're
Oh,
welcome to come off unmute if you'd like to ask a question or share.
thanks for raising your hand. Go ahead. Moto G Power.
And you're still muted just in case you are trying to talk.
Not hearing anything. Well, how about you, Liz?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Are the beneficiaries, are the charities that are eligible for contributions through various vehicles limited to 501c3s, or can it include a 501c4 or another type of organization?
That's a really good question. I'm pretty sure they have to be 501c3s.
Okay. Is there a way to find out?
Yeah, that's something I'd be happy to get back to you about. I bet we have your email address, so let me figure it out. And the easy enough question to answer, and I'll get back to you.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a sort of a question. I really appreciated listing the different options, and most of the time you kind of explained, why would you want to use. I guess that the mechanism isn't as critical to me as when would you want to choose this one over that one, and it would be helpful for me to, have that kind of spelled out.
That's a good question. Thanks for saying that. And I will do that in future presentations, but I can do a kind of a quick and dirty for it right now. A charitable gift annuity is something that I would recommend for someone who was very risk averse. I had clients who only in their whole life had ever invested, had certificates, CDs. They were not able to take any risk whatsoever. They just couldn't do it. Didn't have any invested assets. But and so I had a client who just had CDs. She lived on the income from the CDs. They weren't growing. She needed that income in retirement. But there came a point when they were barely keeping up with inflation. I mean, the CD rates are often just a little bit below inflation. So her total savings was, say, $400,000 was eroding and over time, and there was going to come a point at which she wasn't going to be able to live on that income wasn't going to do it. But there was no way she was going to either sell start spending down the principal or move up the risk return curve a little bit so that she could, potentially make a little bit more money. Um, so a charitable gift annuity was a perfect answer for her because she was already in her 70s. And at that time, I think she got a rate of 7%. And even though she had irrevocably exchanged, we'll say $100,000 for, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was a couple $100,000 actually. She didn't have anybody that she wanted to leave the money to. She was just absolutely terrified to spend down this money. She thought she was going to end up pushing a shopping or grocery cart around town.
Mhm.
So a charitable gift annuity was perfect for her. It was easy. She never had to think about it again. It was a guaranteed income stream that she couldn't outlive. And that check just came, every month, and she didn't have to worry about investments. So um, for the other vehicle, most of the other vehicles, as opposed to a bequest or a beneficiary designation for the charitable remainder trust and both kinds of charitable remainder trusts, it's really a vehicle for people. It's best used as a vehicle for people who have highly appreciated stock. I had a client whose grandfather had been a diamond buyer at Sears in the 20s and 30s, and at some point he'd been paid in Sears stock. So he had all this Sears stock, and he gave all the grandkids, Sears stock. When she was my age, so when she was a child, she had this Sears stock from the time she was a kid, with a cost basis of nothing, and she felt like she couldn't afford to sell it because of the capital gains. So by putting that in a charitable remainder trust, she was able to avoid capital gains entirely, get the full fair market value of the stock, or some of it. She didn't put all of it in the charitable remainder trust, and she chose a lifetime income stream that she was able to set the amount. She was able to say, well, what I really want, I'm not getting a dividend from this anymore, so I've got to have some kind of income, and here's the income stream that I want. So that's an example of, it's really, if you can do it with cash, you can put cash in a charitable remainder trust, but you're kind of missing an opportunity if you have anything that is an appreciated asset and you want to cut Uncle Sam out of the mix and not have to pay capital gains tax on it. So those are a couple of examples. The beneficiary designation, I think, a lot of a lot of a lot of people have retirement accounts, and it's part of what they want to leave to their kids. But as I described to you in my situation, I don't think that would be such a great idea for my kids, because every dollar they take out will be taxed as ordinary income at a really high tax rate, state and federal. So they'd get about 50 cents on every dollar at at the tax rate that those distributions would be in. So that's it. It's the fact that I don't want to see Uncle Sam get all that, get that money, that makes me say this is what I want to do. And if something did happen to QEW and it wasn't able to continue, 10, 15 years from now, and I'm still alive, I can change the designation, or I can dial it up or dial it down if my circumstances change and I need more of that money. Or one of my kids' circumstances change, or somebody else comes along that I want to be able to help with the proceeds of that. I can make a change at any time. So the flexibility of it is what's really attractive to me for a beneficiary designation. So I'll cover that next time. I'll do a little better job of spelling that out next time. Anybody else?
And Liz, I see Liz's hand is
Oh,
raised
hi, Liz.
again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, so you made me think your story about the woman who couldn't tolerate any risk made me think about another question, which is, given that Social Security is going to run into difficulty in some short amount of time, I think within 5 years, I think, Is there any, and you have a lot better insight into this space than I do, certainly. Is there any worry, any reason that we should be concerned, or do you think that Congress will find solutions?
I think Sophia should be concerned. Um, but us old folks, no. I'm not at all concerned about getting stiffed by the U.S. Treasury. But if I wouldn't count on it if I were Sophia's age, or even if I were in my 50s. I mean, what they keep doing is raising the age of the full retirement age, and I think they'll keep doing that, and probably capping maximum benefits. And they have been whittling things down all along. I mean, there used to be all kinds of advanced strategies for collecting Social Security that, if you had a really good financial planner, they would have told you about being able to collect on before you initiate your own benefit, collecting on your spouse's benefit, et cetera, et cetera. But and pushing years out to age 70, and they've eliminated all of that. So I think we've created a bit of a burden for our kids, and I'm sorry about that, Sophia, but I think there's a pretty good chance that it's going to be a really minimal benefit by the time. But who knows I mean, I'm hearing 50% of the workforce may lose their jobs with AI. So, what does that mean? What's the impact of that? If they're not paying into Social Security, who is? So, that's the world according to Gayle with Social Security.
Sounds very uncertain.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry. I'm not worried about it, and I wouldn't worry if I were you. Anything else? Ralph.
And thank you for joining us as well.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ralph. Unmute yourself and. I see the hand, but you're still muted.
Is it okay?
There you go. Great.
Yep, there you go.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you. I'm not asking for tax advice, but I have a tax liability of about $90,000 a year.
Oof.
And any recommendation on how I might donate in order to offset some of that tax liability? I know
Oh
I
my
have to go,
goodness.
I
Yeah.
know I have to go up to my minimum, my distribution, and then how far should I go? Can I go?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me just ask. I mean, something we didn't talk about, but is another one of my favorite ways to give is a charitable rollover. And a lot of people think, well, is a lot of your income, Ralph, from retirement plan distributions?
About 1/3.
Okay, so that's one way. If you're not needing that money, what a lot of people don't realize is they think, well, it's in a 403B or it's in a 401K, and so I can't make a charitable rollover.
Right.
You can take a portion of that account and roll it into a self-directed IRA, or an IRA at Fidelity, for example. They would love to see you coming, and they would help you invest it like it's invested now. And once it's in a self-directed IRA, I mean, you just literally roll it into a self-directed IRA. That's what I did. And then you can make charitable rollovers from that. So that's how Tom and I do almost all of our current giving, is from through a charitable rollover. And the advantage of it is that it never hits your tax return. So if you have $100,000 a year of required minimum distribution, and you say, well, okay, I'll just take it, be taxed on it, and then I'll make contributions, you're not going to get the full benefit of those contributions. But if you do a direct charitable, what's called a charitable rollover, from your IRA to a variety of organizations. It's very easy to do. You just go online, you order the check. It can be as little as $100. You can send it to all kinds of organizations, and they'll just send it off. It never comes to you, or at least from our financial institution, it doesn't. It does from some financial institutions, but the check is made out directly to the charitable organization, and it never hits your tax return. So the advantage of that is you don't end up with that super high Medicare Part B premium and so forth. So if you're not doing that now and you're making gifts, you're missing an opportunity. And I'm happy to talk to you as long as QEW is one of the organizations that is on your list. I'm happy to talk in more detail with you about it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I will be in touch. Great.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Can you put my email in the chat, Sophia?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have both of our emails in the follow-up that I sent out to you as
Okay,
well.
that's good.
So folks can reach out to us. And I will also put your email in the chat right now, Gayle.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? You've been a very kind audience, and thank you for being here to support me in this, maiden voyage talking about planned giving. I hope we'll keep doing it, and I don't wish for anyone's end of life, but if it happens, may we be a beneficiary.
This has been very helpful. You're
Good.
like full of information, so very, very good. Thank you.
It's our ultimate power.
Yes, that's right.
When you think of it that way.
It is to die and leave money behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yes.
I think, again, for future presentations or even just for today, to say the reason I'm interested in looking at what are some, what are reasonably appropriate methods for me to set something like this up for the future, hopefully not, too soon in the future or too soon. Anyway, is the same reason that I'm volunteering for QEW. It feels really good to be doing something positive in the world, considering so much that's going on that I can't stand and I can't seem to do anything about it, or very, very little about it. I feel like contributing money as well as contributing time. It keeps me sane. It keeps me from falling into depression. And I feel like maybe it's helping, So
no, it's true.
Yeah.
The sense of profound powerlessness these days is just it could be crippling if you let it. So it's another reason why seeing all of your faces here has given me a little bit of a boost. And like I said, I never have had people beating the door down to try to get in to hear about planned giving. So I wasn't expecting, 50 people. But I really appreciate this faithful group. So go ahead.
So just as follow up to create some printed material. I don't mean printed, but email material, sending out some kind of basic information to everyone. I'm sure there's like 10 times the number of people who are here today who will read it and take it seriously, but for whatever reason, they're not here now. But I think there will be a lot of interest out there. So you've put together the package. You and Sophia can put it together in a wonderful little package and share it.
Yeah. Well, we do have some pretty good handouts, and later this summer we'll have this stuff. We'll have a giving page on our revised website. We're just a little kind of late getting to it, but it's definitely on the list. And Sophia says by later this summer it'll be up and running. So I'm hoping we might even be able to put a calculator on there that would show what the tax advantage would be if you did this or that, and those kinds of things, so that people can just kind of peruse the options and get a feel for what they are. So.
Yeah, we're currently in the process of website transition. So as soon as our new website is done, we're currently just working on building out all those pages and hoping to, yeah, to really have a robust donor page to help inform people, but also really uplift donor stories as well. I think that's just such a huge part of the work, getting to hear other people's stories about why they choose to give is again, a
It's
testimony to
uplifting.
all of our, yeah, and a very uplifting. And I think especially, um, yes, just even today I was sitting and waiting to get I was getting takeout between my jobs and of course, I always stop to just read through different news and I'm sitting there like waiting for my lunch, like hand over my mouth, like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm reading.
Mm.
And it feels like, yes, every day we're all in that same boat. But then you have these opportunities to connect with one another. And it just is an incredibly powerful reminder of we are moving the needle one way or another. It's a slow and steady process, but that doesn't mean that the work isn't being done and that we aren't making significant steps towards change. And again, I think that's a thing I think about all the time, even though, I'm not even in my 30s yet. I think about what I'm doing today and the impact that it could have in future generations that I might not live to see. And, that also even gives me just an incredible amount of hope. So it's not going to end with us.
Yeah, hopefully not. One of the things that I originally had on the list to talk about, but then realized that we probably weren't going to have enough time for everything, was land conservatorships. And, I am so inspired by what Jim Kessler did with his land. I'm sure you probably all know that story of rewilding some farmland and then putting it in I don't know exactly what the vehicle was, and it wasn't to benefit QEW, but just as another planned giving strategy to create, to make sure that this land would be left wild. It's just such a heartwarming tale. So we need more of that, even if it doesn't mean a six-figure gift coming to QEW or something. It's still a story of somebody intentionally charting the way with a value-driven plan and executing it, and it's a lovely story. So, okay, everybody, thank you for taking this time. On the West Coast, it's dinner time. On the East Coast, it's probably time to go to bed, and
Thanks
so.
again, Gayle. It's been great.
Really, really appreciate it. And Ralph, I'll look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
Liz, I'll get back to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
And
you,
before we go,
Gail.
I actually I just wanted to really quickly, Gail had put
Thank you.
together a query when we were initially talking about doing open worship. And I just want to leave with you all with the query. You're welcome to leave Zoom if you want, but I really did love the query that you put together, Gail. So I wanted to share it before we all hopped out. Just something to think about. But the query prompts us to consider, how does the way that we steward our resources reflect our care for creation and for those who come after us? So thank you all again, friends, for your time, your consideration, and just for holding this space with us today and going forward. We're so appreciative of you all, and it's great to
Thank you.
be having this evening with you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Good night.